In this mini lecture we will discuss the problems freshwater resources face due to human activities and wastewater treatment. After reading Chapter 15 and watching both videos on freshwater resources or reading the transcripts that go with these videos, you should be able to describe the major classes of water pollution and propose solutions to each, and explain how we treat drinking water and wastewater. Now we will consider freshwater pollution. Freshwater pollution can come from either point sources or non-point sources. Point source pollution is a direct discharge from a single location. Good examples of point source water pollution are industrial waste discharges and wastewater treatment plant discharges. Non-point source pollution is an indirect discharge that comes from multiple sites over large areas. Good examples of non-point source pollution are pesticides used on lawns and which run off when it rains or the lawn is irrigated, fertilizer or waste runoff from farms, and oil and storm water runoff from city streets. Non-point source pollution is the major source of U.S. water pollution. Watershed management strategies are developed and implemented at the regional and state level to help to minimize non-point source pollution within the area. Figure 15.22 in your book provides examples of both point and non-point sources of water pollution. The items on this figure that are confusing are the abandoned mines, animal feedlots, and oil tankers or oil spills. Depending on the scale, each of these could qualify as either point or non-point sources. Many environmental scientists generally consider animal feedlots to be a non-point source pollutant. Now we will examine the specific types of freshwater pollution, namely nutrient, biological, toxic chemical, sediment, thermal, pathogens and waterborne diseases, oil, plastic, and pharmaceutical pollution. We have already discussed nutrient pollution extensively, but I mention it here because it is one of the main types of aquatic pollution. The sources of nutrient pollution include fertilizers on farms, lawns and golf courses and sewage. Nutrient pollution leads to eutrophication, which can then cause hypoxic or anoxic conditions. Recall that hypoxic means very low levels of oxygen and anoxic means no oxygen in the water. Nutrient pollution can be resolved by treating wastewater, judicious application of fertilizers, use of phosphate-free detergents and building vegetated buffers on the edges of water bodies. The vegetation in the vegetated buffer filters nutrients in runoff before the runoff reaches the water body. Another type of water pollution is biological pollution caused by human and animal waste, paper pulp and yard wastes. Wastewater from toilets, sinks, dishwashers, washing machines and industrial processes is also a source of biological pollution. The particles suspended in wastewater decrease dissolved oxygen through the process of bacterial decomposition. Developing countries have more problems with this type of pollution than developed countries because developed countries have built wastewater treatment plants to remove biological pollution from wastewater before it is discharged into a stream. The best solution for biological pollution is to help developing countries build wastewater treatment facilities. Toxic chemicals are another source of water pollution. This type of pollution comes from pesticides, petroleum products, and synthetic chemicals, as well as toxic metals, acid rain and acid mine drainage. This type of pollution is harmful to both the environment and human health. One solution for this type of pollution is to implement more stringent regulations of industry, perhaps shifting from an innocent until proven guilty philosophy to a precautionary principle philosophy of managing toxic compounds. Other options are to modify industrial processes to eliminate or minimize toxic waste produced and for consumers to influence the market and industry through mindful purchasing of products that do not produce, support, or include toxic compounds. Sediment pollution is another type of freshwater pollution. This type of pollution is caused by clear-cutting, mining and clearing land for a variety of uses. Soil will flow off the land if the land is cleared but not covered with vegetation or some kind of erosion control product. The sediment is carried to streams and ponds through runoff and consequently causes dramatic changes in the aquatic habitat. The sediment clogs up the stream, making it difficult for photosynthesis to occur, impairs organisms' respiration and causes the stream to fill in. The solution to this is to adopt soil-based management practices that keep soil in place following a disturbance. Additionally, large-scale disturbance of vegetation should be avoided and riparian vegetation should be preserved. One type of pollution that most people don't realize is a problem is thermal pollution. Thermal pollution is when the temperature of a natural aquatic system is changed quickly and dramatically by some human or natural cause. Typically, thermal pollution is due to human activities. For example, industrial facilities often build a holding pond near their facility so that they can pull in the cold water into their plant to cool down the machines they operate. When they are done with the water, they pump it back into the holding pond. Organisms living in the water body will receive a shock to their system because the water entering the pond is significantly warmer than what they are accustomed and adapted to. Dams are another example of thermal pollution because dams typically discharge cold water from the bottom of the reservoir into the river downstream of the dam. The organisms in the stream therefore suddenly have a much colder environment than they are used to. Thermal pollution, either hot or cold, can kill or harm aquatic organisms. Pathogens and waterborne disease are a type of water pollution caused by inadequately treated sewage and animal wastes. This type of pollution causes more human health problems than any other type of water pollution. Disease that humans can contract from this type of pollution include giardiasis, typhoid, hepatitis A, and dysentery. These diseases and pathogens can be prevented by disinfecting water, treating wastewater, public education regarding waste management, regulations that protect food, and cleaning up after domestic animals. Oil pollution comes from large catastrophic spills, such as the Deepwater Horizon or Exxon Valdez, natural seepage, boat leakage, runoff from city streets, and small spills that occur during transport and extraction. The largest oil spill in U.S. history occurred in 2010 when the Deepwater Horizon drilling platform exploded in the Gulf of Mexico. This disaster killed 11, caused over 200 million gallons of crude oil to spill into the Gulf of Mexico for 87 days, consequently polluting the coasts of Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida. While this may seem depressing, the amount of oil spills from tankers has decreased worldwide in the last 30 years. This is due to an emphasis on spill prevention and response in the U.S. Oil Pollution Act of 1990. This act provided a $1 billion prevention and cleanup fund and required that any tanker shipping oil must have a double hull. The double hull is so that if the exterior hull of the tanker is broken by impact with another object, then the interior hull of the ship will still retain the oil. The U.S. Oil Pollution Act of 1990 was in response to the 1989 Exxon Valdez oil spill, which at the time was the largest oil spill in U.S. history. Nets and plastic are also a significant source of water pollution. Things like fishing nets, plastic bags and bottles, fishing line, buckets, floats, and other plastic items dumped into water bodies harm or kill wildlife. Furthermore, converging ocean currents accumulate plastic trash and have caused a massive plastic island to form in the Pacific Ocean. This patch is called the Great Pacific Garbage Patch and is twice the size of Texas. Plastic is harmful because mammals, seabirds, and sea turtles eat plastic, thinking it's food, or eat tiny particles of partially degraded plastic. Consumption of plastic is toxic to organisms and kills them. Solutions to this problem are reducing, reusing, and recycling plastic. Some places, such as cities in California, New York, Washington, Texas and Europe have actually banned the thin plastic bags used in shopping. Additionally, in 2006 Congress passed the Marine Debris Research, Prevention, and Reduction Act. This act sets aside $10 million for National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration for implementation of a program that will include mapping, identification, and impact assessments, removal and prevention activities, research and development of alternatives to products posing threats to the marine environment, and outreach activities. The final type of pollution you should be aware of is pollution caused by pharmaceuticals. The three main routes by which pharmaceuticals enter the environment are: 1. Improper disposal of excess or unwanted pharmaceuticals, i.e. flushing pharmaceuticals down the toilet or sink. 2. Through patient excretion of pharmaceuticals and their metabolites. Metabolites are byproducts created as they pass through an organism's system. And 3. Wash off of medicated lotions or creams during bathing. Pharmaceuticals can also enter the environment through the medicines we give to livestock, domestic animals, fish and fisheries, and through medical waste or medicine manufacturing processes. Each of these routes ultimately results in the pharmaceuticals being carried through municipal sewage lines to a local wastewater treatment plant. As the majority of these facilities were not designed to remove pharmaceuticals or their active metabolites, pharmaceutical compounds are subsequently discharged into surface waters that receive treated wastewater from wastewater treatment plants. Pharmaceuticals in the water pose little threat to humans, but they have very significant and well-documented effects on wildlife, especially aquatic organisms. The bottom left picture shows vultures that die due to bioaccumulation of the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug diclofenac in their systems. This problem was first observed in Pakistan and Afghanistan. Ranchers there treat livestock with arthritis with diclofenac. When the livestock die, the vultures eat the cattle that are left in the field. The bioaccumulation of the diclofenac then causes fatal renal failure in the vultures. Another common example is the delay of metamorphosis in frogs. The picture next to the vultures shows 2 tadpoles after 57 of development in the lab. The tadpole on the right, which hasn't developed its limbs yet, was exposed to fluoxetine. Fluoxetine, also known as Prozac, and is used to treat depression and obsessive-compulsive disorder. Finally, on the far right are fathead minnow which were exposed to estradiol. This is the medication that is in birth control. Estradiol, not surprisingly, acts as an endocrine disruptor and feminizes male fish and other aquatic organisms. To prevent pharmaceutical pollution, do not flush your medications down the toilet or drain. Instead, dispose of them through a community pharmaceutical disposal event or dispose of them in your household trash if a disposal event is not available. Now let us examine how we treat wastewater. Before the Clean Water Act, untreated sewage was released into waterways. This caused oxygen depletion and contamination. In populated areas, municipal sewer systems carry wastewater to wastewater treatment plants. Once there, the raw sewage first goes through primary treatment to remove suspended solids. Primary treatment is accomplished by running the wastewater through a series of progressively smaller screens. Secondary treatment follows primary treatment. During secondary treatment, the wastewater is stirred and aerated, allowing aerobic bacteria to degrade organic pollutants. Further treatment may remove particular pollutants. The tertiary treatment is the last treatment, as is used to disinfect and sterilize the water. This is accomplished using either chlorine or ultraviolet light. During wastewater treatment, solids are removed from the water and disposed of. These solids are called sludge. The sludge is sent to an anaerobic digester for treatment. The gases produced from the anaerobic digester can be used to generate electricity, and the solids produced are called biosolids, and they can be applied to farm fields as fertilizer. When the wastewater has gone through the entire treatment process, it is discharged into a local river, stream or ocean. This discharged treated wastewater is called effluent. Alternatively, the effluent can be retained and used as reclaimed water for irrigation or industrial purposes. People who live in rural areas, which are not connected to a municipal wastewater treatment system, typically dispose of their sewage through septic systems. Septic systems are underground septic tanks that separate solids and oils from water. The water drains into a field through perforated pipes, and microbes decompose pollutants in the water. The solid waste in the septic system is periodically pumped out and sent to a landfill. We have learned a lot about how to clear our wastewater in the last few decades. Long before we had wastewater treatment facilities, wetlands were filtering pollutants from water. Environmental engineers and other trained professionals now build artificial wetlands to clean wastewater. The microbes in the wetlands polish treated wastewater and remove excess nutrients. The cleansed water is then released into waterways or percolates underground. The U.S. has over 500 artificial or restored wetlands. Releasing wastewater effluent into wetlands can help restore marshes because nutrients in the wastewater can increase marsh grass growth. Overall, artificial wetlands improve water quality and provide wildlife habitat and opportunities for education and recreations. such as bird watching. We have an example of a constructed or artificial wetland here in Texas. The Tarrant Regional Water District's George W. Shannon Wetlands and Water Reuse Project is a functional artificial wetland that will soon serve as a water supply for the district. The entire system encompasses 2,000 acres and also serves as a habitat to wildlife in the area. That concludes the second mini lecture on freshwater. If you haven't already done so, please watch part 1. Please review the weekly outline and complete the activities for this week per the schedule set forth in the outline.